Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah. Welcome to another week, another show of Convert Conundrums. And I want to say salam first and foremost to my dear brother Jordan. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah to you, brother. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, good to see you. How has the week gone so far?
It's gone quick this week. It's gone very quick. So that's a good sign, isn't it? That is a good sign. So,
Absolutely. The fact we're in the 11th night, this is it's insane. The 11th night already.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a worry in a sense. It goes by quickly. You've got to make sure you're making the most of it. You know, that's obviously the concern. But the fasting hasn't been the nightmare that it has been in previous years. So alhamdulillah, maybe I'm getting used to it a bit.
No, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. No, that's definitely a sign. For me, it sounds strange, but this is a new experience for me because I'm in a different location for the first time. So I'm finding it. I'm sort of comparing Dubai.
You're in a hot. Is it hot there where you are at the moment?
Yeah, it is hot.
I imagine that is tough, fasting and not drinking in the heat.
Do you know what? Actually, unless if you're out in the sun or out and you're a worker and labouring in the sun, yeah, I can imagine. But otherwise, no. The way the day goes, the way it's structured in Muslim countries, I don't know about all, I've been to quite a few, but you really don't feel it because it's as though the whole country's fasting with you. In the case of Saudi Arabia, it was like that. And hours are adjusted. Like I had to adjust the time for my staff, and it's reduced hours, and there's an excitement, and it's nice. It's whoever can get out to a Muslim country. One day, Jordan, if you come out,
inshallah,
Dubai, or you come to Jeddah, you're welcome and to experience it, inshallah.
I guess it must be different to being in this country where you're fasting and you're walking down the road to someone chomping on a Big Mac, or so
it's totally
if everyone's doing it,
And for example, I don't know about Dubai here because I haven't been out during the fast. I've been at work a lot of the time. Everything's still open, but it's slightly quieter. But in Saudi, for example, it's prohibited for non-Muslims and those who are not fasting, which is non-Muslims, to be eating in public. Restaurants closed and everything. So they really accommodate the Muslims fasting in that instance, which I think is good in that way. So no, assalamu alaikum and wa alaikum salam, and hello Dylan, and to all those many guests that are already on board and watching. And today's show is going to be very interesting, and what we want to pick up from where we left off last week. You heard Jordan and myself talk about before Islam. We mentioned indicators, some of the things that we could mention on air that we were getting up to, other things that we couldn't mention and will never mention.
Definitely not.
Best left in the recesses of our memories. But today now, Reversion or Revulsion, why did I choose this title, Jordan? It's because, okay, we're referred to as reverts, we say that ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we came to the deen, we embraced it. We're going to talk about aspects of that shortly. But was there an element of revulsion, or could there have been an element of revulsion before we embraced the religion, or immediately after embracing the religion? Because that has happened to some people, that they've become Muslims. It wasn't what they cut it out to be, whatever that may be. And they repelled it and left the religion, and they won't have anything to do with Muslims at all now.
Yes.
And to add to that, but we won't talk about that dynamic at the moment. I don't think we're really in a position to, except from a bystander's position. But you've had Muslims who have been revulsed by, was it the religion? I dare say it wasn't. I'd say it was culture, which was masquerading as religion, and they left the faith. And you've done some little shows and things I've seen talking about leaving Islam, or those who have apostated, as we say, in any faith. It's not just Islam. And that's an interesting dynamic which we should explore one day. But today it's going to be about you, me, generally Muslims converting, reverting. Wa alaikum salam, Sister Azina, and what that looked like. So what were some of the moments before that made you, when you spoke about your niece on that occasion, there must have been other things just leading up to that point.
There were, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, my niece was my spark in terms of, I think that was, to be honest, before my niece becoming Muslim, everything before that was kind of anti-Islamic in the back of my mind. But yeah, I think it, obviously with my niece, looking out for my niece, that there was a period where I was quite happy that Islam was good for her, and that was as far as it went. But I think I did, you know, all the stuff I was learning. I think for me, learning about the Prophet, peace be upon him, was something very magical to me. And I didn't really spend a lot of time with any other Muslims. This was all done in my you know, online and reading books and stuff. And we can maybe go on to that later, because I often wonder what would be if I was trying to get advice from Muslims. How would that be to me just looking into it myself? I'll tell you one of the other things that really in my journey that really affected me. And like I say, for me, Islam was an intellectual decision. But I remember when I went to Speaker's Corner to meet EF Dawah, and I remember them giving me dawah, and I wasn't ready to accept Islam that day. Even though I probably accepted most of it, I was still fighting it. I don't want to be Muslim. But I remember I went out to eat with them afterwards. And this is something that stuck in my head very much. When I went out to eat with the brothers, the way everybody was just eating at face value, the way everybody was sharing the food, the way it wasn't pretentious or fake like I'd always been with my friends or my friendship crowds. There was something very different. And I think I probably met the right Muslims, you know, leading up to me taking my Shahada, who really showed me Islam in the way they behaved. And that did have an effect on me, because I think if that day, I was looking for any excuse to leave, to go off my journey. So if I met the wrong Muslim, I would have used that as an excuse. And I often wonder how many people do that. You know, how many people have looked into Islam, they see a couple of aggressive Muslims or people saying silly things, and they're like, well, no, I don't want to go anywhere near that. So I was very delicate in that sense. And I think I was just blessed to have met the right people.
No, that's really interesting that you said that. Two things you've highlighted there. First thing, what you said about, basically you're talking about the brotherhood that you saw and experienced when you're amongst them. And in my PhD studies, that was one of the key things. Because my PhD was looking at converts and basically were they more vulnerable to radicalization or more susceptible to it? Okay, more resilient to it. Sorry, more resilient to it as well. So I looked at the two opposite things. And when I asked that key question to many, why did they embrace Islam? I think it was a third of my respondents said brotherhood. But you said something as well, which was I had a slightly different experience with regards to how I approached Walaikum Salam B, Walaikum Salam Octavia, and everyone else, mashallah, tabarakallah. One of the things that worried me was because of how Jesus was perceived as in Christianity, and I was a Roman Catholic before, as I'd mentioned. I was very wary about how Muslims viewed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, as I was coming to the religion, the thing that got to me is like, okay, he's calling to Tawheed, the same as all of the messengers and prophets that preceded him. So that was a connector for me. But I actually asked a question. So how is he to you? What do you worship him? And the Muslims were like, no. When I went to the mosque, not at all. And that was a relief for me. Because I was thinking, okay, now am I going to go from a faith that has deified Isa alayhi salam to another faith?
So you must have had issues. You must have had issues with your Christian beliefs already. Were you already questioning?
Oh, absolutely. And that was I used to challenge the teacher. They called the priest in. I was saying, why are we worshiping Jesus? And then how he prostrated in the Garden of Gethsemane, and said, why don't we as Christians follow him in his example instead of worshiping him? I had all of those sort of issues there. So very, very cautious about the approaching Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man, the prophet. But as I started reading, I've read various series of obviously the love and the magnitude of this man. Now, obviously, there's no doubt. I think shortly after I embraced Islam and started learning about him, this was something that was very fundamental to me. But yeah, as you said, if I'd approached it in a way that wasn't intellectual, had I approached it looking to speak to Muslims, would I have done exactly the same thing as you, looked at them and said, and I didn't have that experience of meeting any Muslims. No one gave me dawah. My whole posse, if you want, my whole gang, no one gave us dawah. They were just various friends of mine were going around searching. They were the younger ones. I'd been reading, as I mentioned, I've read certain surahs of the Quran, and that shook me. And I put the Quran on the top shelf and just left it. So there wasn't anyone calling me for me to look at. I did have one experience which I didn't know was a calling in that sense. There was when I was coming home one day. I'm from Tooting in South London. And as I was coming out of the underground, Tooting Beck, and I got at the top of the escalator, I saw a Muslim couple. I obviously knew it was a Muslim couple by the way they were dressed. I hadn't seen a Muslim woman dressed in the way that this particular sister was, which is the full abaya, niqab, everything. And they were a black couple. And it was the way that the ticket guard was berating the sister, and the husband was there speaking to him very, very calmly. Now, I could tell by coming from our background, that this is an individual who could deal with that immediately and end the disrespect that was being done to his wife. But he was speaking very calmly, but very firmly. And I thought, no, because like us, if your girlfriend, my girlfriend, anyone looked at them wrong back in the day, they'd be sparked out. You'd straight in aggression. He wasn't doing that. And I was like, why isn't he doing that? But when I got close, I heard he was speaking to him saying, look, you need to calm down how you're speaking. Why are you speaking like this? And I just jumped in. I was in my suit coming from the legal profession I worked in. And I just went in. I said, how dare you speak to a woman of faith like this? Who do you think you are? If he isn't going to do anything, I'm going to do something. It's just, I felt you can't talk to religious people. Had it been a nun, if it had been a nun, I would have been the same way. You can't speak to people of religion, of faith like that. So the Muslim brother, as he was then, said to me, thank you, my friend. Don't worry, got it under control, like that. So I looked, as I was walking off, I saw, okay, they've got it under control. I said, where are you from? Not like country or whatever. Where are you from? Where do you fraternize? And he goes, there's a mosque in Brixton. And that was it. But I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, they come from somewhere in Brixton. And it wasn't until what I mentioned last week that when I decided to become Muslim, and some of my friends had already gone to the mosque. I said, where did you go? They said, there's a mosque in Brixton. That the two connected. So that's when it connected, maybe about a year or so later. And then I travelled down by bus from Croydon to take my Shahada. And I think we'll talk about in a moment that moment of truth for me. We'll touch upon that in a moment. But let me ask you, Jordan. So, okay, you've had all these triggers. You met the EF Dawah brothers. You were going to Hyde Park Speakers Corner. I used to speak there many, many years ago, the 90s with Abdul Haqq Green. It was a totally different thing back in those days. But what was compelling you to go? And was it an entertainment value? But then that entertainment value then became more serious because of what you were hearing?
Yeah, I think Speaker's Corner became... So I noticed very early on that Islam seemed to trump all the arguments. And whilst it's only Speaker's Corner, that meant a lot to me. It seemed to be that all the speakers there, their arguments were very coherent. Their arguments for God, their example was very coherent. And so that made me, I mean, I was aware Speaker's Corner was sort of 3/4 nut house and sort of 25%. And when I used to go, I used to sort of dot around and very discreetly and try and pick out the Muslim discussions. And I became really, I wanted to see Islam debunked, to be honest. I think that's what I wanted. And I didn't really, there's one thing I remembered actually from my experience with Muslims, and it stuck in my head, and I think it did have an effect on me, is when I used to go on holiday with I had a blonde girlfriend at the time. If you go into the market stalls, I was in Turkey, was probably our work experience, you know, the men are literally trying to grab your girl. And I remember that having a distinct effect. It's when you mentioned about Muslims, I remember that having an effect, and that was sort of my, you know, experience that led with me. But yeah, going back to Speaker's Corner, I think that it was literally me intrigued by the arguments, you know, the arguments that the Muslims were giving. The place itself, I think it still has a special value. I sort of half hate the place and half love the place. It's sort of partly where part of my journey to Islam was there. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that does. And what you're saying about the environment now, I would go, as I said, regularly with Abdul Green, some of the other brothers, and we'd get up and we'd be talking. And our main call was to Tawheed and contextualizing that within the society that we're living in. And while I saw that was sort of pre-arranged, Speaker's Corner is historically known for decades, for centuries, in fact. I prefer, this is after becoming Muslim, moving from Speaker's Corner, I wanted to go into the environment where I would have wanted to hear the dawah myself. So we went to Leicester Square, and I started giving dawah in Leicester Square amidst the nightclub, amidst everything there.
Yeah, I've been there.
That was a challenge, but for me, that's where it was. And I saw, mashallah, when I saw some of the individuals become Muslim, take Shahada, you'd see them, the triggers for them, they would be there every week waiting for you to come. Some had come out of nightclubs, but now they were no longer going in the nightclubs. Yeah. I remember seeing a really nice sister, I'm not going to say her name, you could tell she was of North African descent, and she used to sell flowers to nightclubbers and everything. So she was still selling those flowers, but she'd come and stay near us all the time. And we'd look out for her because she was Muslim. And then we started seeing her still coming out at night, wearing the hijab, still selling the flowers. Wow. But she's wearing the hijab now. Yeah. She's staying near us and everything like that. So we were really looking, we saw that happening. Then we started seeing her at some of the mosques that we were going to. And that was beautiful. And we had other individuals, same thing. First, they'd have alcohol in their hand. Each week you see them more and more. Yeah. Watch the debates you'd have with Christians started targeting us. And instead, because we wanted to make the message really clear, so I got into, because I know the Bible, aspects of the Bible, I would throw out some of the contradictions, but it was clear they were trying to be disruptive. So I adopted a different strategy. I said, right, here come the Christians, because they would come and stand around.
Give them dawah.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. But I would say to the crowd, the audience that had gathered, they would gather, quite a lot of them would gather regularly. Yeah. And I say, look, Christians have come. Those who want to hear their message, you're welcome. You can stay here with them. Those who want to continue listening to us, I'm going over there. So we move across, and the crowd would follow us, and the Christians would. And the crowd would turn on the Christians, basically telling them, shut up, we don't want to hear anything from you. Stop this. And that happened every week for months, to the extent that the Christians became very quiet. So that was quite a good strategy. But coming back to what you're saying with Hyde Park Corner and that love-hate relationship, but you go in there now, you heard the myriad speakers, and you wanted to see Islam debunked. Yes. But what was it? What was that central core message that kept you captivated?
Yeah, I remember, you know what, exactly what it was. So like I said, my niece, I was happy with, Islam from a point of view of a woman, of a family member who's female, going to be modest, great values. I think when I started looking in the mirror, Islam had a lot of the solutions to what I saw problems in my own country, in terms of whether it's alcohol, and I've been to Leicester Square doing dawah there, and you give dawah to drunk people and they're going, I know I shouldn't drink. I know, everyone knows, everyone knows they're doing wrong. They've just come out of the casino and lost all their money. I know I shouldn't do it. You'll see them there the next week. But I thought Islam's prohibiting all these things, whether it's a sexual immorality, and Hamza had this 5 poisons idea. I remember one of the first videos I watched, which says Islam has a solution to 5 poisons. It was drugs, alcohol, sexual immorality, interest dealings. Can't remember all of them. But it was, and that really captivated me, actually, because that was, I guess you were coming from a Christian angle, and it wasn't giving you answers. I was coming from somewhere inside of me. I saw my country going in a certain way. Right. And there was calling to a solution. So that was the first thing. But I think once I'd come in the door, I think for me the message of Tawheed, that simple concept of God, would be exactly, if there was a God, this is exactly as it must be, as I was imagining it be. The Quran, the arguments for the Quran were just succinct. It was strong. It was a book you'd stand on. It was a book that challenges you. It was a book that's telling you it's from God. It was just everything about it. It just, I got drawn to it. And mashallah, there are some really good Muslim talkers at the park. Many people critical of Muslims at the park. A lot you hear about it, but I think there's some beautiful representations at the park. We're very lucky to have Mansour, Hashim, Mohammed Hijab, people like that attending the park. giving the strong arguments. And I watched old videos. You know, I watched Green's old videos. I watched Hamza Sources. They're all there. Just simple, coherent messages that the arguments just couldn't be touched.
No, you're right. And Brother Basil is mentioning, I think he was saying Abu Yazid. He was one of the godfathers.
Yes.
Abu Yassin is actually was one of the godfathers of the Dawah in Leicester Square. May Allah have mercy on his soul. Rahimahullah, beautiful individual. But talking about the arguments there, Abdul Rahim sparked this, and I continue to develop that as well when we gave Dawah. But I watched him one day in Hyde Park when we were giving the Dawah, and he had the crowd captivated. But he was in a debate with one individual, a female, and his argument went like this. He said, what's your purpose? Okay. And she was saying that she was quiet. So he said, okay, you haven't answered that question. So what's the purpose of your shoes? She explained. What's the purpose of your jacket? She explained. What's the purpose of the handbag you've got? She explained. And he just came and said, all of these things are dead, and you know their purpose, yet you don't know your own. And that brought her close to tears, not in anger. The realization dawned upon her, and I started asking people that. So how come you don't know your purpose, but you can explain the purpose of everything else that is an accessory to you, but you can't explain yours? And these were powerful, as you said, some very powerful, basic, direct arguments. But coming back to us now and our journey. So you heard those arguments. They convinced you. The monotheistic argument of Tawheed, and not only argument, that truth hit you. What then? What next?
Yeah, good point. Do you know what I think? So for me, after Tawheed, I think Prophet Muhammad, peace on him, was probably one of the latter things I looked into. I was looking at Islam, all of the kind of solutions it had for society. That was the angle I was coming in. I heard the arguments. I think when I started reading about the Prophet, peace upon him, you know, I remember being close to tears on one of them, and I remember being presented with the argument of, you know, what would motivate a man in the desert that long ago, and I couldn't answer that. You know, so I don't know. But yeah, I think, to be honest, if I'm honest, I was Muslim long before my Shahada. I'd accept. I don't know if it's the same for you. I'd accepted it all, but I was pushing away. Even when I went on that, you know, magical day where I received Dawah, but it wasn't. I think the Dawah was sort of, I was kind of switched off. I was like, I don't want to. I was looking for a way out, but I couldn't really. You know, when I ate with you know, Brother Abbas, Brother Imran, Hamza, when we all ate together, and like you say, this brotherhood thing, because a lot of people will say, oh, he just needed a brotherhood. I was popular in my previous circles, and it's not like and I was part of a brotherhood, but there was just something different about this. There was just something selfless. There was something that I thought, this is humanity. This is how we should treat each other, and it really impacted me. It really did. It had an impact on me to want to come back, because, like I said, I was looking for a way out, and like I say, any way out, I would have grabbed it. I was looking online for arguments against Islam. You know, I would have come across probably the Christian Prince and all these. None of them really had any effect on me. And like I say, I think I was fortunate to meet the right Muslims. So yeah,
that's important, Jordan, because you gravitated towards examples, and we know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah tells us, was the exemplar. He was the best example, okay, to mankind. And that is such an important element, which I think, unfortunately, is a bit diminished today. That's not been the focus of us as Muslims today, with regards to manners, etiquettes, truthfulness.
And do you know what? Character is universal, is it? It doesn't matter what you are, whether you're a thief, a beggar, a poor man, a rich man. Character is something that you just everyone respects. If you've got good character,
that's right.
Just universal amongst us all, and that was powerful for me.
So your character is very important, and I think that with us, we gravitated, this is my colleagues and I, we gravitated towards a mosque that was reflective of Islam to us. We saw a multicultural presence. When we went to Brixton Mosque and realized it was a convert mosque, and was very glad because we were going to Croydon Mosque and there was a difference there. They didn't really welcome us, or they welcomed us, but they didn't accept us, as it were. And they'd even point to the mosque. You should go to your mosque in South London. That's when we started seeing elements of racism there. But I think when it came to, and I've shared it before, and I don't mind sharing it now with you, when it came to that decision regarding Islam, I've been sitting, and I think I've mentioned this previously with you, I've been sitting at home, relaxing in my second home, a property owner, life going well, legal profession, everything there, wife there. And my friend, Aslam is his name now, T, we're both known as T, Tony Daniels. He was at mine. He was one of the older ones, one of the leaders of our gang, if you want to say. A few of us were at the head of the gang. And he said, look, I'm thinking of becoming a Muslim tomorrow. I'm going to the mosque. You're going to come with me? Because we always did things together. I told you we traveled Europe. We did everything together, absolutely everything. So he said, I'm going to the mosque tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, you go. He said, but we've all been reading, discussing. I said, I know, but I came out of Christianity. We've got our own faith as a posse. We do our things. We don't do bad things to people. And so he asked me, and he wasn't trying to provoke me to go, but he said, okay, look at what our life, look at what we've witnessed. He said, you believe in these articles of faith? I said, yeah. He said, you know the pillars of Islam? I said, I do. I don't know much about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but yeah, I get that. He said, okay, what if you die tomorrow? What if you die tomorrow and you know there's a day of judgment and you're going to meet God on the day of judgment? And I got upset with him. I got a bit frustrated. I said, why are you asking me this? I don't know. But anyway, he calmly just said, look, it got late. He said, I'm going. I'll speak to you tomorrow. And I was just riveted in my chair after. I couldn't move because I'm one who likes to win arguments. I'm one who likes to have answers to riddles, if you want, puzzles. And I didn't. And that's the first time I think that I've ever sat pondering throughout the night, knowing I can't answer that question, knowing that there is a day of judgment because my previous Christian beliefs there, and knowing that I'm going to have to answer to God. And before I was a Muslim, we knew that we would be answering before God. But then it was like, well, we don't harm people unless we're harmed. We don't go out, we're not into violence unless it comes to us. We're not robbers, we're not women abusers or anything like that. So we don't have to worry. But now there was that spiritual dimension being brought again. I didn't have an answer, and I'd seen some friends die, and I said to myself, I don't want to go out like that. And then also there was my court case was pending my appeal case from, I think others may have seen my other shows about what happened. The George Floyd triggered so many things. When, like my wife said to me recently, she said things that could have been so different when we was watching the George Floyd trial. She said, I could have been a single parent and our oldest daughter, an only child, based on similar experience that I had with the police in 1989. So I thought, I don't want to go out like this. I need to make this decision. And that was that final trigger. And I'm grateful to my close friend and brother Aslam for provoking that thought.
So I did have a similar experience. Like I said, when I speak to you, a lot of these things, like my memory comes up. So I remember leading up to me suddenly wanting to I took my child on the phone because I was like, I don't want to delay because I know I was looking for a way out.
Mashallah.
But Hamza sent me some videos. There was that one. Is it Speak Truth or something that talks about, it's that guy with the hearing aid who sort of raps a song. I can't remember the name of it. It's very famous. But Hamza also sent me this YouTube clip of people dying unexpectedly. And I thought, why is he sending me this? Like, this is really morbid. But in a way, it was probably the right thing to send me because I think, and it's a really interesting point that you make there, to take your Shahada, you need the realization of how important your Shahada is. And death gives you that, it's because the Shahada is more important than my worries about my this or whether it's relationships, families, this, that. Your
Right.
shahada, when you're hit with, you know, the fact that you could die tomorrow, but then all of a sudden it's a different perspective, isn't it?
Right.
And I definitely was triggered into that on the week of my shahada. And it's interesting, mate, whether reverts need that or not. I don't know. I certainly did, because I wasn't really asking myself the big questions. You know, it wasn't really something. You know, my purpose of life was something I was sort of like pondered about when I needed to. But you know, I don't know if you were the same. I mean, I guess you were Christian, but for me, I was just YOLO. You know, happy living as I was. Do you know?
No, I remember I discarded Christianity years and years before, and I just let my it was our street culture that kicked in. That was my faith. That was my religion. And then sometimes when I felt, oh, I've done some really bad things, I'd go into the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church in Tooting, and sit in the confession box. And that's when I was questioning, why am I telling this priest? And I actually asked him, why am I telling you about my sins? Because I couldn't tell him everything. He would have thrown me out. So I thought, why am I speaking to him when I should be going straight to God in my prayer, not praying to Mary, not praying to Jesus? So for me, Christianity was long gone in that way. And I think that when you move from a religion, when you move from a faith, okay, you plunge into hedonism or darkness with a vengeance. So that makes you even more dangerous to an extent to yourself. You could be very self-destructive, and to others, because you've now left that spiritual realm, despite believing in a God in your mind. So, well, as long as I don't do this, God won't judge me in that particular instance. But there's like, well, who am I to decide on the criteria of how to live and perceive God, who is the creator of all? So this was problematic for me, and I wasn't looking, this is the point, I wasn't looking for another faith. I wasn't looking for religion. When Islam said to me, I'm going to the mosque tomorrow, yes, I'd read on Islam, I'd read up on Islam, I'd read the Quran, and it had a profound effect on me. But I thought, okay, let it stop there. But what I realized, they were a series of triggers that were taking place, you know, steps of guidance, if you like, from Allah that was coming in, but you didn't know it. So that provocation, if you want, I can't think of a better word, or that stoking of me to become a Muslim was that point of like, okay, Tawheed. Now, others might say I came because of intellectual arguments. I came because I saw the arguments were convincing. But there must be that moment of truth when you realize, you actualize that Allah is my creator. And only that makes you say, so I need to submit to him.
I agree. And I remember that as 100% spot on. I remember I remember the time I knew I'm going to do it. And I don't know why it was, because I'm not particularly a cringy guy, you know, with you know, that talks about spiritual experiences. But I just remember driving down this road with the trees. It was night and it started snowing. And for some reason, I was just like, I'm Muslim. Like, I don't know what it was. It was suddenly because I was fighting. And yeah, I think, like you said, when I look along my journey, I don't believe I chose Islam. I believe I was chosen. When I look at, when I look at, people often ask me, you chose Islam, and I don't think I did, because it wouldn't have been a choice of mine. Somehow my niece, you know, sparked it, but somehow I feel like Islam was almost placed within me, and then I was left with no, you know, with like you say, spark after spark after spark, until there was no way out. Now could I have got out? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't know how I'd have got out without knowing that I believe in this.
Absolutely. I think what you said there is the reality for us, for all converts, which was like Basil saying, it's called sakina, that tranquility that you felt. But for all converts, no, we didn't choose Islam. Allah chose us. Allah guided us. I've got no, like when you look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was trying to give dawah to his uncle, and Allah told him, Allah guides. It's not you who guides, it's Allah who guides. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was just to convey the message. So in that instance there, yes, you're right. Allah guided us, and that's a privilege, and that's an honor, and that's why I'm so grateful when I think about it. And people say, oh, you came to Islam, why did you choose Islam? Okay, we had some choices to make, but Allah had already decreed, you are one I am choosing, to embrace this faith, and and all of the elements and factors were placed around us.
Yeah.
Just like it became unavoidable. Like Allah says in the Quran, to look within ourselves and around us, and to ponder and to reflect. And he asks in some instances, have you no sense? He talks about the tips of our fingers and how no one has identical fingertips to anyone in the creation, and so many things, and it just becomes overwhelming. And the overwhelming truth, that moment of truth, points back to Allah only. You know, some people say I became a Muslim to marry my wife, or to marry my husband in that instance, or to escape from something or whatever. And you have to ask yourselves, at what point did that cognition come? Because many of them stay in Islam, become good worshippers in that particular instance there. So that cognition of Allah is why I have come to the deen. And Jordan, I say it, I remember on one occasion I was given the khutbah many years ago in Brixton, and as I stood there ready to deliver the khutbah, I just stopped and I looked at everyone. I said, hold on a minute. Why are we here? Why have we embraced Islam? And I said, I'm going to say one thing. And this is before I went into the khutbah. I said, I'm doing all of this because I want to meet him.
Yes.
Who created everything. Yeah, we want to go to Jannah. Yeah, we want to avoid the hellfire. I said, you know what? For me, ultimately, I want to meet him. I want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to see he who I'm worshipping and who I'm doing all of this for, and who has done all of this for us, and who has created all of this for. And then I stopped, paused. I saw everyone sort of looking at me shocked. Then I went into what the khutbah was, which was about something totally different. But that is it for me. At the end, the beginning and the end, Jordan, that moment of truth for me was, and even now, Allah, I want to meet you. I'm not going to do all that I've been doing here, all the things I've been giving up, those desirous things that are within a fingertip away from me, okay, a click of a button away from me, except that I want to meet him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and I think that it's a beautiful concept in Islam about everything we do is for the sake of Allah. And for me, even coming online and things, I'm always reviewing, why am I doing this? And if I ever sense that I'm doing it for any other reason, I think that's when I really need to check myself. And I put out a video the other day actually, because I was speaking to Brother Abbas, and he talked about one of the imams. I can't remember which madhab it was, but talking about every public deed writing off, because if there's a little bit of you that does it for another reason. And I just thought that personifies Islam. We do things because we want to meet Allah. We if you're a believer, you're going to do things whether people are watching you or not. And that was a really I know I'm going a bit off topic with that, but it was a really beautiful concept. I'll tell you what, one thing that you mentioned earlier, and I don't this could be for another stream, and let me know, you've got to keep me on track. When you mentioned about you going to a certain masjid, I've got a revert brother, black revert brother, Jamaican, who he's a YouTuber as well. He goes to Speaker's Corner, and he called me yesterday, and he said, "Oh, I found a masjid. I'm going to Lewisham." And the reason he picked Lewisham was because he hadn't necessarily felt comfortable in other places, being a black. And I when I hear things like that, and I keep hearing things like that from black revert brothers. And that's why probably maybe even my experience is different to yours in that sense. So even those things would be interesting to compare. But yeah, when I hear the challenges of a black revert in comparison to what I have, that makes for a whole new stream itself, doesn't it?
No, absolutely, and we should look at that, I think, on an occasion and really unpack it. But for me, I think we were sheltered in a sense, because I think that our teachers saw how raw we were. Okay, I was working in the legal profession, but they saw our background. They saw where we was coming from. They saw that we were not between the flight and fight. We always fought. There was never flight with us. Yes. So they wanted to protect us from some of the experiences they had as African Caribbean converts, and some Black American converts, African Caribbeans who were amongst us. So when we went to the Brixton Mosque, as I said, that was newly established in the sense of the building, the premises they had there, but the community had been emerging from the mid 70s in that instance. So we went there, and when we became Muslim, obviously, I removed any lens of racism. Well, I thought I had that existed. My network of friends were always black and white. No salvations except the one individual who bought me the Quran. So then we started traveling around London and even up and down the country, going to masajid, going to pray and everything. And we were looked on in some instances like aliens. We saw after the Imam said Ameen, and we said Ameen. In this instance, everyone turned and looked at us after the prayer. We saw that no one wanted to put their heels to heels and shoulders to shoulders. So we didn't know if that was a religious thing or if that stokes from a cultural element in itself. So we saw racism, and one of the things that really got me, and it was something that stuck in my mind, none of us would call ourselves Bilal. And even none of my children are called Bilal, because we saw Bilal's an excellent Sahaba, an epitome of forbearance.
I think I know what you're going to say.
So we go in the mosque, and then the adhan's getting ready to be called, and they would look at us and goes, "Why don't you call the adhan?" Bilal called the adhan, and was like, "Whoa, hold on a minute." This kept happening repetitively, and it's like, you remind us of Bilal. Bilal was a black companion who used to be a slave. And was like, whoa, okay. And it was the connotation that was there. We read up about Bilal. Was like, it was much more than
but there are so many black examples you could give, isn't it, apart from that one? But that's always the one.
So that would be given, and it would be used complementarily, but it would also be used with a negative connotation to it. Okay, so others were more direct than that. That how can you be Muslim? Like, you're black. How can you be Muslim? Was like, whoa, okay, what does that mean? And that nearly got aggressive on those particular occasions. So for my formative years, it was Brixton Mosque, and I loved the development. And we saw black, brown, white, and there was no color demarcations or distinctions whatsoever, even down to marriage. So you saw that even the South Asians that were coming into Brixton Mosque, they would go, some of the brothers would go to their parents and say, no, he's a really good brother, I stand by him, he should make our sister, she wants to marry him, we want to support. Not on myriad of occasions, but that was happening in the communities that we are in. So I can understand when black brothers and sisters gravitate to predominantly black or multicultural mosque as opposed to traditional South Asian or Arab mosque in that on that occasion, because of the experiences that they would be having. But I'll say one thing that we as black brothers have to look at as well, and as converts, sometimes we would come into the deen and we would have expectations that we're going to be catered for and accommodated. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in to an extent, but in an absolute sense now, are we expecting to be entertained? Are we expecting to be given special treatment? And some of us do come in with that. And
I think white converts especially do, I think.
Why would you say that? I might be interested.
Well, the reason why, I guess, so I remember an experience I had, and I was really annoyed with this. So I went into a masjid, and it seemed like a Bengali masjid, and they prayed, and it was during Ramadan a couple of years ago, and everybody went upstairs to eat, and nobody invited me up there. And I thought, what's going on? You know, why is nobody coming up to me and taking me upstairs? And I reflected on that. I thought, you know, when I look back, some of the brothers told me, well, who do you think you are? Why don't you just muck in? You know, everyone's the same. Why was I waiting there? Why was I waiting there needing them to come over to me? And I guess these are reflections that I had. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or not. It could be also things that I think in generally English, the culture is very much we wait in queues, we wait our turn, we don't push in anywhere. But yeah, I certainly think I probably expected to be hosted as opposed to just get on with everyone else.
Right. So good point. So I think there's got to be a balance, and we as converts have got to mute our expectations of how we're going to be received. Yes. As long as it's not racism. And then also those who are witnessing us come into the faith have got to have an understanding that these individuals have left or made seismic changes to come to where they are now. Family breakups, families casting some members out, your social network, familial network being totally decimated because you've been repulsed by those who you've left, and the society in itself as well. Looking, I'd say, especially for you as a white Briton, for me amongst the Christian Black Britons, it's looked at as traitors for embracing a foreign faith in that instance. And the question came up about those converts who went into extremism. Was it such that they didn't understand the religion properly? That's a really good question. And what I've looked at is that some of them, they had this overzealousness, the 4-stage model, that cognitive development model that I've indicated before. They had this fervency for the religion, and it surpassed what they had been experiencing. And the reason it surpassed it, that racism, the fringe treatment that they had, in a way that they'd shut that out to say these aren't proper Muslims, they're cultural Muslims. We need pristine, pure Islam back, and the only way to bring it back is to sacrifice myself against the wider society and the non-Muslim Muslims who've imposed and oppressed Muslims in that instance. So that zeal that's actually there can be born out of that love, that excessive love for Islam, but also a marginalization, not only amongst wider society, which they once lived in, but also the Muslim communities who they've had a disappointing experience with. And when you look at a number of converts who have gone towards extremism, as I've looked at in my case studies, it's been a bit of those elements that I've mentioned there.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Can I wanted to, because I keep thinking of triggers, and I think this is linked to race, and I wanted to know your opinion on this, because I'm really interested to know a Black revert's opinion on this. So for me, I accepted Islam was great for my niece. I was looking at it for my society. Now, one of the triggers that I do remember and that I do talk about is, for me, when I saw Hamza, so a white Muslim, arguing in Speaker's Corner, it was like a click. So he was dressed like me. Well, not exactly like me, but he was dressed like an Englishman. He's wearing sort of football casuals. He had a cap. He had the sort of British swagger. And he was arguing for Islam, and all of a sudden, because I think for me in my mind, and I don't know if this is, I don't know why, or I think it could be probably a common thing amongst Brits, is that even if you think Islam is beautiful, it's a great religion for the people across the pond, for that part of the world, for the Middle East, for Pakistan. Good for them that they've got that religion. Whereas for me, if I have a religion, it's got to be Christianity, but I don't believe in Christianity. It doesn't make sense to me. Right. So I was kind of on that, but I remember seeing a white Muslim arguing for Islam with passion, and something going off in my head that was like, "Whoa, so it's a possibility for you." Now, I don't know if that's something similar that you would experience. I mean, in your journey, would you need to have a Black Muslim in your journey? Would it be less would you relate less to, say, white Muslims or Asian Muslims as someone looking into Islam? Does that make sense?
It does. Absolute sense. Fantastic question. And I hadn't considered that before. But looking at what you said makes perfect sense. And I'll explain why. Now, we know that the 124,000 prophets and messengers, came for their tribes, for their nations.
Good point.
The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the only messenger and prophet that came for mankind and jinn. But what we have to look at there in this instance as well is that when we saw the Sahaba and we saw the Prophet ﷺ send them off as messengers, he sent them back to their tribes, back to their communities. For the most part, Mu'adh ibn Jabal was sent to Yemen, but he knew the ways of these people. So for me, what really entrenched my belief, solidified my faith, was hearing from those who were like me. Hearing the passions, hearing those similar experiences, and let's point to the one of the greatest influences to me and many other Black Muslims, the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
When I read I read it so many times. I read it before I became Muslim.
Yeah, I've read it.
And I loved it up to the point that he converted to proper true Islam. And I switched off at that point. This is before I was Muslim, because I was like, this man, yep, everything what he's narrating, his life. Okay, I escaped jail. I wasn't, not literally escaped jail, but I wasn't imprisoned, mashallah. And I didn't understand when he became Sunni Muslim. I was like, he's watered down that passion, that spark that he had in him.
Yeah.
But as the more I read it, as I became closer to embracing Islam, and after I embraced Islam, it was that part that I understood, and it resonated with me even more, that how we embrace Sunni Islam. Yeah. So again, if I was reading about, for example, Yusuf Islam, who I knew and worked with, mashallah, after I became Muslim a few years later in, if I'd read about an Asian star or someone like this, it wouldn't have had the same impact. Yeah. Absolutely not. In the same way that you see a lot of these big stars, these American footballers, these British or international football stars, rappers, in the same way that their message, when they've embraced Islam, it captivates the black audience and the wider audience in itself. Yes, hearing and learning from those initially who were from my side, not only ethnicity, but life experiences, was very, very powerful to me. And that opened it up for when I started hearing from others. As Abdul Rahim will tell you, he used to come to Brixton Mosque a lot. Even when I was chairman, he used to be a regular. If I remember rightly, Abdul Rahim Green, up until now, was the only white individual who could stand on the minbar, the pulpit in Brixton, and deliver a khutbah where everyone was captivated. To this day, I think he's the only white convert that I remember who could come to Brixton Mosque and deliver a khutbah. And the community was receptive to him. We could have Asians coming in, we could have Arabs coming in, but that foundation, that premise was laid by the ethnicity and cultural mosaic that existed in Brixton, which was predominantly black.
It's interesting, yeah. And I remember this is a big part of Down. Obviously, because we talked about racism, but I guess then this is identifying that there's sometimes a need for us to relate to our own people, I guess. And
yes.
I remember before Issa Frimpong passed away,
yes,
we were talking about we were talking about me, him, and there's a Bengali, another Hamza who goes Speaker's Corner. He's a twin. We were going to do a 3-way dawah sort of thing because we thought we'd have everything covered. You know, we got a white Muslim, and we thought that was a really important part of dawah. And even, you know, in EF dawah, we reflect because many of us, the reverts, are white. So we're just wondering, are we running the risk of only really relating to white people? And like you say, I think, look, we hopefully when we talk, we are talking to everybody and you know, without discrimination. But it's just that experience that I had coming into Islam, having the need to see somebody look like myself.
That's
really
important. That's important, Jordan. Why? Because one of the things I saw that happened to us, many of us as converts, I'd meet the odd white convert who suddenly was wearing shawar kameez. The black convert who was wearing shawar kameez.
Yeah.
We ourselves, I like wearing thobes. I still wear thobes now and everything. And we wear it with our own kind of swagger and with our Nike trainers and our baseball caps and everything. We make it our own. But before, I remember there's pictures of me when I became a Muslim, and I'd be walking out. My neighbors knew me well, my white neighbors across the road and everything. Yeah. And I thought, right, Islam means I must look like the Tuareg, and I'd be strapping, coming out with this big turban, this big cape and everything. Yeah. And we were like, we want to look like, we want to show our identity as Muslims. Now, there's nothing wrong in wanting to show your identity as Muslims, and our Muslim sisters cannot hide it. MashaAllah, Allahumma barak. Our sisters who wear the hijab, those who wear the niqab, we've really got to show respect and admiration for them, because
they're on the front line.
Wearing the hijab is an obligation for them on those occasions. So for us now, going to those, I would say, behavioral extremes, to wear these garments, to look different. Were we doing that, I think, in part to show that we're Muslims, but we were inadvertently adopting cultures that weren't our own.
Yes.
You know, so I
Right.
remember one of my friends one day, this is my Pakistani friend, the only one amongst us, when he saw us all embrace Islam. It was wonderful for him. It's like, this is brilliant. Like all these black friends and one white friend, Shuaib, my dear friend, mashallah, becoming Muslim over that year. And I said, I want to wear some garments that Muslims wear. Okay. So I remember he was coming up my road, the road where I live with my mum, the family home. And I was walking down towards him, and I saw him excitedly looking at me that I've got the stuff for you, yeah, the bag and everything. So as he came, this was in broad daylight, as he came near me, about 20, must have been 20 meters away, he pulled out one of the garments from the bag. And it was the trousers, the lower part of shawar kameez. And I saw these massive MC Hammer trousers. I looked at him, and he's going like, he's doing the thumbs up, holding them out like that. And I was like, no way. So people saw us walking towards each other. And as we met at my gate, I said, what's this? He said, you said you wanted Muslim garments. I said, I'm never wearing that. He goes, no, it's a Pakistani dress. It's Islamic. It's the best way to wear it. To this day, I've never worn it, and I will never wear shawar kameez because it's not my cultural dress.
Yes. No,
So
I agree.
I think I don't know if that happened to you, but many
I
adopted a dress that was not from our culture, not from our background.
I was very lucky in the sense that Hamza had been through, you know, when he converted years ago, he'd been through that, you know, where he wore, like you say, the shakamis or the thobe, and he, you know, most reverts that convert, especially when they haven't got anyone mentoring, will do that, and they almost feel like they have to, and often they'll get advice that they have to as well, you know, change your name and start dressing like an Arab. But I believe that if I saw Hamza in Speaker's Corner dressed like an Arab, all of a sudden I would have lost that relatability to him. It wouldn't be like the same effect. Do you know what I mean? The fact that he was still dressed like, and I think that's why I still potentially. I mean, to be honest, even when I converted to Islam, I remember we were doing Umrah with the brothers who were blessed to do Umrah in like the you know, within the first couple of years of me converting. Amazing. And I said, I'm not wearing a dress, and I was against wearing a thobe. I said, I am not wearing a dress. 2 days I was rocking the thobe around Medina, proud, you know. There's nothing better. There was nothing better, you know. But still, in England, I don't feel that wearing a thobe up the road in England is good. I don't know. It doesn't feel necessary. I'll wear it for Jummah sometimes, and it's got its practicalities for prayer and things like that. But I'm English. My identity is English. I'm obviously Muslim, but it doesn't mean I have to dress, you know, like an Arab. So
I'm so glad you said that, Jordan, because you're right. And I remember there was a stage where everything was thobe. When I was shortlisted for middle management, Department of Education and Skills, and I'd gone through all these different stages to be shortlisted. And I was, maybe it was suicidal, in inverted commas, metaphorically speaking. But I thought, you know what, I want to see, because I was wearing usual suit, casuals, everything like this. And I thought, you know what, now I'm going to the final interview, and I want to see how they're going to be with me. So I put the thobe on, I put the headscarf on, and I went to the interview. So they did the interview, very good interview. They said, do you have any questions? And I just looked at them and said, do you have any problem with this? I don't know why I did that, because I really wanted the job. And they looked, they frowned and said, why would we have a problem with that? And that's the British, that was the British mindset, that no, we don't care who you are, what you are. We just want you to be qualified for the job that you're doing. But also what you said as well, no, we don't have to wear the thobe. And I remember there was a sort of imposition that we placed on others and ourselves, that we had to wear this uniform. And that was done with the sisters as well. And I would say now at this point, having lived in the Middle East and actualized the religion a lot more, I would come back, and I still come back, and I say to the brothers and I say to the sisters that I know, why are you wearing black? Why are you wearing the dress of the Middle East? And they look at me, shot, oh, that's dangerous what you're saying. No, it's not dangerous. Cover, but why are you wearing black? Like I say to my daughters, when you're going to the UK, you don't need to dress like that. As long as you're wearing the hijab, if you want to wear that bar and everything like that, wear some softer colors, okay? But you don't need to dress as is required in the Middle East. And my daughters were shocked at first and was like, really, Abby, are you sure? This is for you. You're adults now. We don't want to see you with yellow polka dots and everything like that, because that's not the purpose of the outer garment and everything. But why are you dressing in from the head to toe in black? That's not a requirement
Yes.
With the color and everything in that instance. And some were shocked, and some are still shocked that I say that. In the same sense, I say to the brothers, I'd say, why are you wearing a thobe all the time? Is that obligatory? Is it the uniform? Because even the Arabs will be saying, why do you dress like that? Why don't you wear the clothes of your people, or how you dress normally on those occasions? And so for me, the actualization of the faith means contextualizing it properly. And I'm glad you said what you said, because no, we don't have to wear thobe. There are certain etiquettes and ethics that we have to adhere to, the loose clothing, for the females, the covering of the head and the loose clothing on the body, and the descriptions are actually there. And I'm not saying don't wear a baya, but what I'm saying is, do you need to be donned in black all the time? Do brothers need to be wearing white long thobes all of the time? And when engaging with the people in dawah, like the experience you had, we need to be able to relate, not thinking that this person is emulating an Arab and telling us that's the only way to be from the truth, to emulate an Arab or emulate a South Asian. That's the only way that or to emulate a Tuareg Saharan African to be upon what Islam truth in totality. And as we're drawing to a conclusion, Jordan, one of the things my organization, my youth intervention organization that I started in 2006 now, the strapline was, it's for you from people like you.
MashaAllah. That's such an important message, isn't it? And like I say, it gets lost sometimes. And I'm blessed to have, been given that, because I think keeping your identity is, it just, I think, and look, I'm not saying we do everything, but imagine my mum suddenly seeing me the next day in a thobe, my friends, it would just been, and look, if people want to wear it, that's up to you. But the thought that you have to wear it, that's where it's wrong. If wearing a thobe makes you feel more proud to be Muslim and things like that, power to you. It's that notion that, right, you're Muslim now, you should be wearing a thobe, and if you're not, it's not part of the sunnah and things. Those are the things that I didn't lucky to
and you alienate that was part of the thing, I think, for us converts who were so overzealous in those early 2 stages I've mentioned of the cognitive development framework. We were so overzealous that we didn't give room for those that we were converting to Islam to say, okay, let us come with you on that journey, or let us understand that journey with you. We actually push them away because we're saying, this is me, this is my appearance, this is how I'm going to dress now, this is what I'm going to be doing, and if you can't get with my program, then I can't get with you. And you know what? You're non-Muslim anyway.
It's almost like you've got to throw away your history, haven't you? You've got to just throw away everything that you were. And that's not the case. I often feel that I'm Jordan 2.0, rather than Jordan, completely different. Obviously, some things I had to change completely, no doubt. But, I didn't feel like I had to jump out of my British skin and become an Arab.
No, exactly. We are who we are. Islam came for everyone, and it came to enhance our lives and our cultures. If there's any element of our cultures that are at odds with Islam, we remove them. But we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, saying, you know what, I've got to be a new me, a different culture. Even the way some of us began to speak. Now, yes, we use Arabic words and everything, that's fine. But even the intonations, the tone, I don't want to sound like, I'm not insulting any other, I don't want to sound like an Arab, a South Asian, an American, or whatever. I'm a South London Brit, okay? Born and bred, proud of it. Why do I need to change any aspect of how I speak? Unless I use profanities, which I don't, then I have to desist from doing that. But these things are conundrums that continue to affect converts. And I hope that in us doing this show, we're going to some extent to say, no, you can be you, remain to be you. The changes are internal. There are some physical changes you have to make with regards to maybe some of the food that you're eating. But as Shabnam's saying, just be yourself within Islamic parameters. And those Islamic parameters are wide. And those Islamic parameters are designed for mankind. So Jordan, you know what? Again, we could go on for hours.
We could.
I think that we'll
could.
leave that till next week, where we'll pick up on some
Alhamdulillah.
other subjects, inshallah. But again, Jazakallah khair, and Jazakumullah khair to all the audience who've been contributing and making some very pertinent comments. And enjoy the rest of the evening with Ramadan. For me, I'm going to start getting ready for Suhoor and then Fajr, inshallah, in a little while. And Jordan, brilliant. I look forward to seeing you again next week and continuing our discussion, inshallah. Anything you want to add to conclude?
Again, like I said, I think a lot of these discussions, I sort of they're really good for me, because I sort of remember things that I'd forgotten almost, and it's sort of reliving, and hopefully it's beneficial to others. That's why we're doing it, essentially. And no, I really enjoy talking with you. So yeah, we got another couple more after this, inshallah.
Another couple more, and then we can decide towards the last one. Do we continue out of Ramadan? We'll see what you feel, what I feel, inshallah, what our audience feels, and then we can take it beyond. So we got another 2 at least at the moment. And inshallah, I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, drop a comment if you want us to carry on. Drop some comments and we'll see.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know, so that we can at least plan beyond the next 2 weeks. We can plan beyond that, inshallah. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Love you too, brother Liam. Jazakallah khair for your input. See everyone next week. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.